Good afternoon, students. I hope you're able to hear me. Good afternoon, students. I hope I'm audible. Let me just check this out on YouTube. Yes, I have got confirmation of my voice being audible, so I will start with my session. Uh, Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon once again. Welcome all of you to the Unacademy platform. We are continuing with our daily series, which is the daily newspaper reading, the daily analysis. Unacademy, you are probably aware by now, it's India's largest online learning platform. Uh, so today's session should be relatively short. There aren't many big topics to discuss, but let's see how things progress. This is a brief about myself, Aritro Dasgupta. I am an MBA in Forest Management from the IFM Bhopal. Got a decade's work experience in different areas such as teaching, training, strategy, consulting, and in content writing. My experience has primarily been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in the USA as well. So last 5 years, I have specifically been involved in this sector, which also brings me to Unacademy, which is the coaching sector, and toppers or rank holders for several of the leading exams in the country have in the past few years been my students. Of course, that was primarily offline through contact classes. Now, of course, I'm pretty confident we are going to repeat this once again on the online mode as well. Do confirm to me what you feel. I personally feel you guys will do extremely well this year as well. Do write into me for whatever. On the right side, we have the chat window of YouTube. So do feel free to connect with that. These are some of the major highlights of what our program will offer you. So, for example, we have classes on a daily basis. In fact, I will show you one session is going on right now on the right side of the page as well. If I click on this, my colleague is presently conducting a class here as well. So, all this is part of our same channel, which is Let's Crack Management Exams. So, you do get live classes from me as well as the other educators. There are tests and quizzes which we constantly take in between classes. So, you must have noticed on the right side of the chat window, I often do put up different questions for you guys to take note of. Right. The course content is structured. We have our head office in Bengaluru. That's where it's mostly done. But of course, we individual educators can also add in our inputs there as well. There is unlimited access you get because you can keep looking at past sessions. Even if you've missed a live session, you can always go back to the archives. You even have the option of downloading classes and viewing them later on at a comfortable time. This is a sample of some of our top educators. Do look into their names, but also importantly, have a look at the watch minutes and the followers that each of them brings to the table. Right, for example, the last name you can see, she's also a poetess. Of course, all these trainers primarily into verbal, into logical reasoning, and into quants. I, of course, will be taking your general awareness. That's where I have specialized in all these years. These are some of the live classes. This is how you will get notifications. So this is just a sample. So for example, if somebody wants to know how to prepare for quants overall, a broad this thing, one can go through the 4 p.m. class. It's not for today. I'm just generally saying it's slightly older data, but you get these kind of sessions all the time once you are subscribed and enrolled in. There are batches for syllabus completion as well. So that includes, so you do get these notifications periodically for the different batches. So what is the Unacademy advantage? Let's have a quick look. So there is a schedule that works for you. That's the best part. Once there is a schedule, so you don't have to follow a specific schedule. We conduct our classes as per our schedule. But even if you aren't able to attend all the classes, you can always, plug in at any time later on. You just need a mobile, a PC, or a tablet. That's it. There is no language barrier. In fact, our subjects are taught in over 16 languages. So you get a lot of options, including in English, Hindi, Malayalam, and Tamil, and 12 more languages, of course. There are live polls. This is something I told you here on YouTube, but more than YouTube, it is also it's really something a redeeming feature of the online the unacademy.com platform. There we do give out these kind of questions quite frequently. You can get your doubts cleared while you interact with your educator. Just to give you how it works. So on the right hand side, you can see there is the YouTube chat window. So do feel free to ask in your questions, any doubts you have at any stage. I shall be really happy to answer your questions. Right, you do get detailed PDFs and learning material. Today morning, some of you may have been there. I took up the current affairs session for the month of June. I started, so that has detailed PDFs. You can download that and go through it. On the other hand, right now I'm going to take up the newspaper session. Not much of a PDF here because newspaper itself is your document. I've told you about live tests and quizzes. You also get, so one is live tests. Apart from this, the ones which we give on the spot. Apart from this, you also have planned mock exams, which are planned at the head office from the very beginning, and there you actually get a rank as per where you stand nationally. So you can get in-depth reports from that, like how exactly you're doing per topic, what is the total time you've spent per question, how far you are from the topper in the country. You get a detailed percentile. As you can see here, where my cursor is pointing, 1 minute 34 seconds is the average time. This is a sample. Likewise, you get for every question. I want you guys to read this once. So this has my code at the bottom, AD09, which is, the moment you put on this code, you get a 10% rewardship, which is cut from your fee. Right, I think you guys have taken a look. So 1 month, if you take, it gets more expensive because you pay 31.50 per month. But if you take a year's program, it's just 13.13, which is more than 50% off per month. 2 months, 2 years' program is ideal because then you get preparation over 24 months, and of course the pricing comes down by 75% per month. Overall, it rises, but bang per buck is the highest. So I'm done with the basic introduction about Unacademy. I'm now going to begin with the newspaper readings for today. So as usual, I'm going to begin with The Hindu, which is generally considered by all educators as the best newspaper to start your entrance exams. Prepare for entrance exams. The first page, of course, has and so this is just to show you that Hindu newspaper. The first page is an advertisement, a full-fledged, full-page ad. Fair enough. I mean, media needs money to survive, so great that is. Now coming into the first page, and a couple of really important things. So RBI has been in the news for a few things. Now, I'll also discuss in detail when I look into the business page. But before that, the RBI, because obviously it wants to give a fillip to economic growth now with COVID-19, going on and on for so long. So some of the key policy decisions, let me just tell you, I'll just read it out directly from the paper itself. First one, banks allowed to restructure stressed corporate and MSME loans. There are corporate loans. Stressed means ones which are struggling to repay. MSME stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. The second major point is relief to individual borrowers. This is at banks' discretion. So banks can give them relief provided the bank itself is. So they'll have to probably do a credit worthiness study to see how these people will pay up later, if at all. There is, however, no extension announced on loan moratorium beyond August 31st. You might remember when the first lockdown was declared, and in fact, subsequently, when the 20 lakh crore package for Atmanirbhar was released by the finance minister, at that time, there was a 3 month moratorium given on existing loans, which would cover June, July, and August. That would extend for that time. Initially till June, then till was extended till August as well. There will be no extension or moratorium as of now till beyond August 31st. It could change, but as of now, that is pretty much it. Okay, the next point is borrowing limits against gold relaxed. This is something I'm going to speak to you in detail about, because this is one of the biggest stories of the day. So what has happened is, there's something called gold loans. This is something which is people in North India may not be very familiar with. It's not very popular in the north or the west, but really popular in the south, not in the east either. So it's really popular in the south, especially in Kerala. Kerala is actually a state with a lot of links to the Middle East. The Middle East is a major market for gold as well. So a lot of people who are the migrants, they do bring back gold. So there's something called gold loan. So where you pay up gold or you deposit gold at a bank and you get money in return, which you can spend on various activities, and of course later on you can pay it back and get back the gold. That of course you can understand, we can talk in detail. Now what exactly this does, one of the biggest companies there is Muthoot Finance. Some of you may have heard of it. It is one of the world's, not just India's, one of the world's largest companies for gold finance. Now in the field of gold borrowing, there's a limit which used to be of 75%. So basically, if I'm depositing gold worth 1 lakh rupees, I don't get that entire value, because gold prices are volatile. The government does not want full transaction with gold. That is your gold. You can get it back at full pricing once you pay back with the interest rate. But I get say 75%. So 1 lakh rupee deposit, 1 lakh rupee worth gold deposited. So I get 75,000 in return for it. There is some interest rate. So I need to pay it back eventually. Then I can take back my full gold. Worth 1 lakh or whatever is the price of gold. Then gold prices often increase disproportionately to the interest rates. They're often higher. So in a way, the depositor ends up making a good profit. This has been revised to 90%, from 75 gone up to 90, because a lot of borrowers are unable to repay their, a lot of the depositors, they are not getting the value which they want. Also, gold prices having gone up, there is a massive demand among the people to cash in on this gold, which has gone up. So the government is probably believing, the RBI, that this is a good time to get in some of the gold in the banks, because gold is something that banks can also get a lot of benefit of in the future. So this is a big piece of news. In fact, there is something by the head of CRISIL. CRISIL is one of India's largest credit rating agency. It's a subsidiary of S&P, Standard and Poor, the US giant. Used to be independent, CRISIL, but now comes under S&P. So the head of CRISIL has mentioned something which I want to mention to you separately. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Krishnan Sitaraman, who's the senior director at CRISIL Ratings, he says, I'm going to read out the whole thing. Gold loans by banks will get a fillip from the increase in permission of LTV. LTV stands for loan to value ratio. It is expected that gold loans will be one of the preferred options for raising funds, in the current environment for many borrowers, as individuals and micro enterprises go for it to meet immediate funding needs. That's a really important thing. Mr. Uday Kotak, who is the chairperson, the MD of the Kotak Mahindra Bank, he has also chipped in, because there's another point by the RBI stating that debt resolution plan will be helped to meet borrowers and lenders. This is something I told you a while back. So he has actually welcomed this quite a bit. right? But of course, there are more quotes from Mr. Sitaraman himself. So this should perhaps, at least in the medium term, give some boost to the Indian economy, especially the borrowings market, which has been flagging. So the first page has a lot of important news, and guys, please understand: Sushant Singh Rajput suicide or murder is being given disproportionate amount of importance by a lot of TV channels. I'm not playing down that news. This is big news, and of course, it's tragic for him, his family, his friends. A lot of some crime may have taken place, but it has no relevance to the entrance exam. So, guys, please do not spend a lot of time in that particular piece of news. For you, this is a far greater important thing, but this very few channels are covering, except in the business segment. So please, that's why my newspaper session is so much vital, so much relevant for the real news to come out. Okay, I'll continue reading from what the RBI has mentioned. The next point is tenure can be extended up to 2 years for personal loans. This is big because for personal loans, a lot of people may have taken a loan 2, 3, 5, 10 years back. They may be unable to repay it right now due to the economic losses we are all suffering, and that is why these people they feel that it's been up to 2 years. It can be extended. Again, it is the bank's discretion. The individual bank will need to take a decision, but the RBI has allowed. Otherwise, they couldn't have done that. So that is a big move. There's a 10,000 rupee crore support for the NHB, which is the National Housing Board, and the NABARD, which is the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. The first one, of course, looks into affordable housing. The second one looks into rural credit. Two really significant segments which have been underfunded, which have struggled in the past few months. Rural credit is something which was on the verge of getting destroyed some time back. Pretty good rains this year and a decent agriculture output so far means that things may return. So let's see how things work. Finally, the startups included in priority sector lending norms. This is again critical because startups were not considered worthy of being in the priority sector. So this means that okay. So what this exactly means? There are some sectors in the economy which are considered priority sector. So within these priority sector, if the startup is working on that sector, then it will be eligible for the lending norms for the priority sector. Now, what exactly is a priority sector? There are some industries, some segments such as road construction, oil refineries, or railways, which are essential services, food and agriculture, without which we can't survive. We can probably survive without, let's say, malls and restaurants or pubs and hotels, but we cannot survive without these basic things. So there is something called priority sector where certain firms will need to invest a certain part of their revenues. A lot of foreign companies are expected to invest a part here. Similarly, the RBI says that the RBI and generally the government as well want startups to work in these essential segments. We see a lot of startups in things in urban areas where new business is not necessarily needed, but not much in this agriculture sector. So this is something which definitely, in fact, I keep talking about, during the annual winter pollution haze over Delhi due to the farm fires over Punjab and Haryana. So what typically happens is, I mean, there are different ways in which this fire can be avoided if young entrepreneurs from urban areas take up certain steps. There are ways in which that waste can be collected and used in many areas. So we can discuss that in detail some other day. But this, of course, is one of the major areas. Delhi government has once again written to the government or the central government asking to revoke the decision of the LG or the Lieutenant Governor who has mentioned that markets and hotels should not be open now. Delhi government though wants it to happen. Mm, Fair enough. The rest is local news. Now, there's something which has come from Gujarat, quite a tragic case. 8 people have died in a COVID hospital because there was a fire. COVID, as it is, something which is troubling so many people. On top of that, a hospital fire has been absolutely deadly there. Gujarat has been, at least in the initial period, was one of the worst suffering states, especially the city of Ahmedabad, which is the financial business capital of the state. Things are on the verge of recovery in Gujarat, but of course, still remains one of the worst hit states. Next piece of news is very important. In fact, I spoke about this yesterday as well. If you remember, we spoke about the CAG, but yesterday it wasn't fully confirmed. Today it has been finally confirmed. So, Mr. GC Murmu, who was the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, the first ever LG of Jammu and Kashmir here, because Jammu and Kashmir until now was a state, so now Jammu and Kashmir is a union territory. So, Lieutenant Governor GC Murmu has now left that post because he has become the CAG, or Comptroller and Auditor General, where he has replaced Mr. Rajiv Maharishi, who held this post until very recently. For all the people who missed yesterday's session, CAG stands for Comptroller and Auditor General, the highest auditor in the country. Right. So, who is going to be the next LG of Jammu and Kashmir? Again, a really significant appointment. His name is Mr. Manoj Sinha. Have you heard of him, Mr. Manoj Sinha? Anybody, please let me know. I will be waiting for your comments. So Manoj Sinha has actually been a former minister at the government. He was the Minister of State in the first Modi government, 2014 to 19. He has also been 3 times MP, mostly from Eastern UP, and was part of the Vajpayee government as well, not as a minister but as a as a an MP, and he's renowned for a lot of work he has done in Eastern UP. This time he contested from a seat in Bihar, but he lost his seat. In fact, he was the only NDA candidate to lose in Bihar. In Bihar, there are a total of 40 Lok Sabha seats, out of which within the NDA there was a division of seats. So the BJP fought on 70, contested 17 seats, the JDU on another 17, and the LJP, which is Ram Vilas Paswan's party, Lok Jan Shakti party, they contested over 6 seats. So LJP and BJP got 100%. JDU lost just 1 seat. He is part of, I think he contested from a JDU. I'm not really sure of that. I'll need to check that. He contested either from a BJP or a JDU ticket. But yes, he was the only one from the NDA who lost a seat. A Congress leader won there. Right. More on Manoj Sinha, I will speak later. There is a little bit of more information on him. I'll move into the local pages for some time before I move back there. Got an important call. Right. Moving into some of the local pages, there is some. Okay, so Delhi University has launched an online education program because obviously classes, contact classes have not begun yet. I told you yesterday that there has been a report, or rather a letter written by the DUTA staff. DUTA is Delhi University Teachers Association to the Delhi government. And of course, Manish Sisodia, who's the deputy chief minister and also the education minister, he felt he was asked to intervene in this, and because a lot of the staff, especially the non-teaching staff, has not been paid its due during the last few months, so he has written out at some of the DU colleges which have been found guilty of. DU, by the way, is a national government, central government university, so not directly under the Delhi government, but of course Delhi government would have a say. That is exactly what has happened. I believe some amount of funding does come from the NCT government of Delhi, National Capital Territory. I'm not really sure of that. I'll need to check that. Mm, Okay, another central university in Delhi, which is Jawaharlal Nehru University, also was in the news yesterday for a 455 crore rupee investment from the HEFA for a new building, new campus, and some new courses being introduced. Today, they are in news because of some appointments. Apparently, two posts have seen two appointments each, whereas there was supposed to be only a single person. So, that is something the Delhi High Court has written about this thing. So Delhi University will actually begin its final examinations, the first phase of the final examinations from the 10th of August, which is this month itself. Fair enough. I'm done with the Delhi pages. With the opposition, Shiromani Akali Dal and the BJP, they have asked for the Punjab government to be dismissed in the Congress government in Punjab. But of course, they have met a strong rebuttal from the ruling Congress party in Punjab. Uh, so more than 100 people, have died due to this Hooch tragedy. Now it does seem to have slowed. Not many new cases last few days, fortunately. Maharashtra, for a while it seemed to be slowing. It has actually slowed down in the biggest of cities like Mumbai. The fatality rate is 3.5% for the whole state. But the overall state numbers are actually increasing. It's 11,000 plus cases, 11,500 cases yesterday in this. There is further report on Miss Sadia Dehelvi, the Sufi um, thinker and writer, and about her contribution to Sufi literature and music. She actually wrote one of the books. I told you about her yesterday. She passed away day before, lost her battle against cancer. But today, of course, there's more. She speaks about how Sufism cannot be isolated from its Islamic roots or Vedanta from Hinduism. She feels that spirituality and religion should not be kept apart, as many do believe. One of the books she wrote is The Sufi Courtyard or the Dargahs of Delhi. She also was a script writer for a television series called Amma and the Family, which was done for home TV, which I remember when I was, 7, 8 years old, there was this channel, home TV back then. Right, fair enough. Let's move towards the editorial pages. There's a report on academic research and how that works. So, academic research, there is this writer, Mr. R.B. Grover, Professor Grover. He is emeritus professor at the Homi Bhabha National Institute. He's also a member of the Atomic Energy Commission. He feels that there should be a change, which I think the government is working on revising, but he feels it does need to be done. So there's a science, technology, and innovation policy, or the STI policy. The government is revising it, and he is supporting the revision. He feels that there are lots of courses and lot of not courses per se, a lot of research that takes place which does not really take into account the real research methods. He adds in some words. In fact, he quotes a former Nobel Prize winner, Dr. William Shockley, who spoke in 1956 that words are in research which are frequently used, such as pure, applied, unrestricted, fundamental, basic, academic, industrial, or practical. These words are hollow. Anybody can use these terms, and they are not really being followed to the letter of the law, and that is why things do need to change here. He's mentioned about some alternative methods, and one of the systems was actually one which is being followed by NASA in the USA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So the method is called TRL, or Technology Readiness Levels. He feels this is the best method. There's a TRL 1 stage and there's a TRL 2. Also, doctoral research, there could also be encouragement to postdoctoral research. That is exactly what he says. He also suggests that terms such as academic research and post-academic research can be used, as that will be much more relevant, because academic research, you are somehow doing it to attain a certain degree. Post-academic, on the other hand, is something you're doing out of your own vocation. So there is a difference between the two. right? You can read further on that. So there are a couple of stories which there's one called the cartographic challenge. Cartography is the art of making maps or map making, and it says Pakistan's new map is intended to provoke India and internationalize the border dispute. I'll talk about this, just give me a moment. There's another article which says straying into troubled waters, and below that it says imprisoned fishermen in both India and Pakistan need to be released and their boats returned. Now these two, of course, there's one relation of India Pakistan, but there's much more that links these two stories. Let me speak a little bit on the new map that Pakistan has created and why is it controversial. First of all, what exactly is this new map? I just close the paper for a while just to speak better with you. So Pakistan, so India at the time of independence and at the time of the partition, with the two nations being created, there were lots of princely states, principalities, in hundreds of principalities. So the British gave them three options. One is acceding to India, another is joining Pakistan, and the third would be independence. And now, independence may not have been practical for many of them because they weren't big enough. They were surrounded by either India or Pakistan on every side. They would be small, unsustainable economically, militarily. Joining Pakistan, of course, was an option. Many did have that, but of course, the vast majority joined India. Now, there were three states in particular which did not join India easily. One of them is Jammu and Kashmir. We can talk about it some other day, maybe. Another was Hyderabad, and the third was Junagadh. That's where the story begins. Now, Jammu and Kashmir had a Hindu king, but the majority of the subjects were Muslims, at least in the Kashmir Valley. Not Jammu was different, of course, but overall, the combination of the state, the percentage of Muslims was a little bit more. I mean, I don't have an exact figure, but probably between 55 and 60%. That's my ballpark figure. I am not really sure. In Hyderabad, the king was Muslim. The vast majority of his subjects, around 80%, maybe more, were Hindus. Similar figure was in Junagadh. Junagadh was the smallest of them. Hyderabad, the biggest of them. Hyderabad is basically, you can say, most of present day Telangana state. Also parts of Andhra Pradesh, parts of Maharashtra, but for the most part, the state of Telangana. Right, so Hyderabad was the prized possession which Pakistan coveted. Kashmir is a different story, don't want to get into that, but Junagadh is something which was more realistic. There was no land boundary with Junagadh, it's deep inside Gujarat, but there is ease in water connectivity. So recently, the map that Pakistan has released, they have not gone to the extent of claiming Hyderabad. That would perhaps be too much even for Pakistan. Kashmir, of course, they have long coveted the POK part at least, but they have added Junagadh to its territory. This does seem rather fanciful, but so this is what the story says, that there is some sort of a way to internationalize this conflict, way to get others into this conflict as well. Junagadh. Now, why am I linking this with the fisherman story? Please understand that Gujarat, the coastline of Gujarat, is one of the richest in India in terms of fish production, especially one luxury fish called the red snapper. Red snapper is one of the most expensive fishes. For us fish lovers, that's something. But of course, this is something we should all understand, that each time we're having red snapper, our fishermen have gone to great extents to get it, because that water is a little bit undefined. I mean, it is defined on an international scale, but of course, it's very difficult to measure where exactly the territorial waters of my country end and another begins. So we see this tragic case where innocent civilians and some of the poorest of people, because obviously fishing is not something which a lot of rich people would be doing. Some of the poorest of people, they are arrested by Pakistan, and they maybe by our side as well. I can't really say speak on that, but fishermen are caught on both sides and put into prisons because they have violated international territory, whereas in truth they probably were looking for fishes. So this is what the article talks about, that these fishermen and their boats should be returned. So there are captured fishermen on both sides. It confirms India and Pakistan both. In fact, in many cases, their families know nothing about the health conditions of these people. So these two are actually related, and there was a proposal in 2008 which would have led to resolution of that never really took place. A little bit more on the Junagadh dynasty. He was a colorful man, was very fond of dogs. So when he finally left India, he took away his jewels, but he also took away all his dogs. He was a dog lover. In fact, there was one more thing about him. No, two more things rather. One of his most trusted men was actually Shah Nawaz Bhutto, who later founded the Bhutto clan in Pakistan. Benazir Bhutto and Benazir's father, I can't really remember the name, but yes, they were his progeny. And one more thing with the Junagadh king, he was in fact one of those people who kept a huge area for lions. So those lions, the Gir lions that you see now, this is one of the great things that he did. He's often mocked at for his funny, maneuver to have, get Junagadh merged into Pakistan so far away. But this is one thing he really contributed. He saved the lions in that territory. And because they were under his protection for so long, and lions don't live as long as humans live, they live for about 12, 13, maybe 15 years, or maximum 17, 18 years. Because of that reason, in his lifetime and slightly after that or before that, they had multiple generations. So because there were multiple generations which were in captivity, they were in captivity, but it was a large territory, so they became sort of domesticated. The lions in Gir, they're not as ferocious as their lion cousins in Africa or tigers in, say, the Sundarbans. They are comparatively domesticated. He also started, I mean, this was actually one of the first steps in conserving or protecting the lions in that region. So that is one great contribution that he did. There is one article by Mr. Harsh Mandar, who's a renowned human rights worker. He's also a writer, a teacher, and an author of several books, including a really famous one called The Partitions of the Heart, Unmasking the Idea of India. So he speaks about the migrant crisis which has hit India so hard, the internal migrants. He also says that this story has died out from our mainstream media now. It was big news when the people were seen walking, but now that they have probably reached their homes, back to their home states, this news has died out from the media. But it's even in their home states, they are not really getting the job. In the first place, the reason they migrated, they left their homes, was because there were not enough work opportunities. So obviously, the conditions may not be conducive. Even things such as the 100 days as jobs given through Narega or Manrega, that is also not possible for such a huge population. In fact, the locals, they often rely on these migrants to send them money, send them remittances, literally. We use the word remittances for people going abroad, but this is also remittance of a sort. Now the opposite has happened. They have come back. They have to be they have to be treated by the locals who stayed back. So there is massive amount of hunger and unemployment. A lot of people have their diets have been affected real badly. So I'll read out a few of the points. So he says that nutritious but unaffordable portions of one's diet, including dal, milk, vegetables, fruit, eggs, and of course meat, these have been eliminated. Many families have reported to having only coarse rice and roti with salt. The next step is to reduce the portions of that rice as well. So it's absolutely horrible conditions, and of course many children are unable, most children almost are unable to go to their schools, and they are now doing other stuff, scrubbing through waste for anything that can be eaten or sold. And India was already down at the Global Hunger Index. I discussed that in one of my monthly current affairs sessions. India is ranked 102nd out of 117 countries, 16th from bottom in the Global Hunger Index. This could further accentuate. There is also this feeling that the global poverty will now hit middle income countries, as well as those in South and East Asia. So away from Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia and East Asia could be hit real badly. Right, fair enough. I am done with. Okay, there is one more thing which I wanted to tell you. There's this really brief article called "Verify Before Reporting." Donald Trump, the US president, he's known for his outspoken ways. So he had a couple of days back mentioned something about a terrorist strike in Beirut being responsible for the horrific things we saw from Beirut in Lebanon. That has been proven to be untrue. But it's just that loose comments like this could lead to a lot of issues. So examples have been mentioned from the erstwhile Czechoslovakia and how the Velvet Revolution came up due to some false, unverified news which came out. Journalists are supposed to, rather, where were the terms? I wanted to share those terms with you. Journalists are supposed to get it right, but instead they are often under the worry to get it first, and that can be dangerous in this context. The US military itself ended up denying, the US external intelligence ended up denying that there was anything like that they found in Lebanon. So they actually went against what Trump said. Okay, moving into a bit more of the local news. Karnataka and Telangana are seeing spike in cases. Rains were lashing out in Kerala, now in Karnataka as well. The Madras High Court, based in obviously Chennai in Tamil Nadu, they have ordered Patanjali to pay 10 lakh rupees because apparently the fear is Patanjali was trying to exploit the fear of the virus. So please do read up about this thing. So the talk is about the coronil, which was proposed by Patanjali as a cure. So this 10 lakh rupees will need to be paid to the Adyar Cancer Institute as well as the government yoga and naturopathy hospital in Chennai. There was also a trademark dispute regarding the use of the term coronil because apparently the Chennai based equipment cleaner Arudra Engineers also has a very similar product and uses a similar symbol. Andhra Pradesh has announced that colleges will reopen on 15th of October. So that's quite far away. The central government has notified Andhra Pradesh, rather the Ministry of Home Affairs, the MHA, has informed that the center has no objection to the three capitals being proposed by Andhra Pradesh because this is state subject. The center would not like to intervene on that. There is this tragic news from Telangana where one of the MLAs, Mr. Ramalinga Reddy, has passed away. He's from the ruling TRS or the Telangana Rashtra Samiti. He is the MLA of Dubakka constituency, which lies in the Siddipet district. Mm, so he had been sick for 2 weeks. There is no confirmation of COVID-19. So it is probably something else. Right, I had told you that there will be something more on Mr. Manoj Sinha, so I'll quickly read out a few points. He was the sitting MP from Ghazipur in Eastern UP because Eastern UP is close to Bihar. He contested from Bihar this time. Uh, So after he lost because of his exceptional performance as a minister in the earlier governments, there was a understanding that he would probably be made a minister once again, but through the Rajya Sabha route. But that, of course, did not take place. Now he gets another plum position, which is as a lieutenant governor of Jammu and Kashmir. And please remember, LG, I've told this before, a lieutenant governor in a UT union territory has more powers than a governor in a full-fledged state does. There has been a further injunction of 890 crore rupees, which has been released by the center to the states to fight COVID-19. Different states will be part of this. There is a new initiative from the railways called the Kisan Rail, which is specifically going to ferry fruits and vegetables. Massive rains in Mumbai. In fact, Yeah, massive rainfall in Mumbai, and so the record has been broken for South Mumbai. I had told you something really interesting yesterday of a battle going on between Punjab and Madhya Pradesh regarding the use of the term basmati rice and the release of a GI tag on Madhya Pradesh's basmati rice, and how Punjab feel that MP does not belong to the particular region which should be eligible to claim that name. Now Madhya Pradesh has hit back. The Chief Minister, Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, has written back to his compatriot from Punjab, and this has become sort of a political battle. So, that because of course MP is ruled by the BJP now. The Kamal Nath government fell a few months back, so now BJP is back in power. By-polls are scheduled, but as of now he remains the CM, and Punjab, of course, is Congress. Congress is in power there, so that is what the tussle is apparently. Mm, so Mr. Chauhan has actually said, I will quote his exact lines: the case of APEDA stands for Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. So the case of APEDA with Pakistan has no relationship with claims of Madhya Pradesh, as it is under the GI Act of India and is not linked by inter-country claims of basmati rice. So GI, this thing is only within India. That's what Mr. Chauhan says. Captain Amrinder Singh, however, contends that this could have a problem internationally, which is governed by APEDA. Those are the international laws and which govern India and Pakistan's food sharing. There is news from Air India. Air India, you must be aware, this is on the verge of getting privatized. Had there not been this lockdown, maybe this would have happened by now, because this was really boiling up for quite some time. Was one of the big news stories of the year. So Air India is going to receive two new Boeing jets. These are massive planes. It's called the Boeing 777-300, 777-300. But this is not part of the Indian Air Force. This is for used by the VVIPs, or very, very important persons. So this is for the president, vice president, and the prime minister's use. Till now, Air India was using its Boeing 747 aircraft for the VVIP trips when they would withdraw them from commercial flights. But these two flights will only be these two planes will only be used for VVIP movement and not for any other purpose. Boeing, you might be aware, it's Seattle-based, Seattle in Washington state of the USA. Boeing is the world's largest producer of airlines, along with Europe-based Airbus. So Airbus and Boeing, they are constantly in a rivalry. Right, there's news from Bihar. Bihar is supposed to have its elections in November. Could be delayed this year due to COVID-19. So Rahul Gandhi, former president of Congress, All India, he's now MP from Wayanad. He has asked his team, which includes leaders like Mr. Tariq Anwar, he wants alliances to be formed up by now. In case there is an election, the team should be ready with the proper alliances. I'll just put the charger in, right? Just give me a moment. So Bihar is in a way quite a complex state politically. So on the one hand, we have states in India such as Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat. These are by and large two-party states. These are direct fights between the two biggest national parties, which is the Congress and the BJP. There is some presence of the BSP in Rajasthan, in MP. In Gujarat, there is NCP, but by and large, these states are direct Congress versus BJP fights. One of the states in India which has multiple parties is Kerala, but Kerala has always had these two factions. They have been set in stone for almost 4 decades. One is the LDF led by the communists, CPIM. The other side is the UDF led by Congress. Now, of course, BJP is forming a third front. Bihar, on the other hand, also has about a dozen parties. Some of them are really small, which have influence over a couple of districts only. The really big parties, obviously, two are the national parties, BJP and Congress. You also have RJD, led, of course, by the Yadav family, Lalu Prasad Yadav's family, and of course his son Tejasvi Yadav is its main biggest face nowadays. There's also JDU, led by Mr. Nitish Kumar, another very big regional party. There's also LGP, led by Paswan. And so these are the, you can say, the big five parties. Beyond this, you have many smaller parties like there is the VIP, Hindustan Awam Morcha, and there is Rashtriya Lok Samta Party. So all of these parties have enjoyed good amount of success in the past. Like I remember, Rashtriya Lok Samta Party was part of the NDA in 2014 and had couple of 4 or 5 seats in Bihar. So you also have the left alliance, the Communist Party, CPI, CPIM, CPIML. Some of the U parties which are strong in neighboring Uttar Pradesh, they also have a presence like SP and BSP. So number of parties are many, but so those strong alliances need to be carved up. That is important. It is not possible for any party. I don't think any party has dominated the state on its own for like 3 decades now. But that is something. That is the reason why Mr. Rahul Gandhi wants these alliances to be formed up in case the elections are held now, to be ready for that. News from neighboring West Bengal. We are talking Bihar, so next door neighbor, West Bengal. So there is some sad news. Mr. Shyamal Chakrabarti, who is a former leader of the CPIM, Communist Party of India Marxist, he has passed away. He was 78 years old. In fact, he tested positive for COVID-19. That is the reason. He was a transport minister in the Jyoti Basu-led CPIM government a few decades back. He has also served time as a Rajya Sabha MP at the centre. There's a TV actor, Mr. Samir Sharma, who has also passed away. He did a number of TV series like Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki, and Rishta Hai Pyar Ke. Right. I'll move ahead to the next page now. There is news from Sri Lanka. The opposition has suffered a huge setback. The ruling SLPP, or Sri Lanka Podujana Paramuna, led by Mr. Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is expected to form government. Till now, whatever the counting has taken place. In fact, Indian Prime Minister Mr. Modi has already congratulated his compatriot from neighboring Sri Lanka, and Mr. Rajapaksa has returned the congratulations as well. The Tamil National Association, as expected, faced some hurdles. They were hoping for sweeping the Tamil vote bank, which is strong in the north and the east of the country. That has apparently not taken place because the All Ceylon Tamil Congress has been doing well as well, cutting into their votes. Facebook and Twitter, they are not happy with Donald Trump's misinformation campaign, according to them. I'm going to come to Lebanon in a while because there's quite a bit to discuss regarding Lebanon. We, of course, India has been suffering from the various, from the effects of COVID-19. The numbers just do not stop. But our neighboring Pakistan has lifted all restrictions, and 10th of August, everything will run as usual, has been declared. The Ministry of Public Transport, cinemas and public transport will also begin. The Minister of Planning, Mr. Asad Umar, has confirmed this point. The USA is examining if Saudi Arabia might have nuclear goals. Saudi Arabia, please understand, is the world's largest importer of arms and ammunition. As per a report by the Stockholm-based SIPRI, which brings out this report every year, Saudi has been embroiled in a deadly war with Yemen, especially the Houthi rebels who are apparently backed by Iran. So there is fear that this could rise further, and Saudi aims might include nuclear weapons as well. That is something US is looking into. Saudi has also built good relations with China. So that's something that several countries are keeping their eyes on. TikTok has been a lot in the news, not just in India because of the fear of its being banned, but also in the US and several other countries where it has been accused of spying. The US administration has given Microsoft, tech giant Microsoft, the go ahead in acquiring TikTok's platform in USA, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The owner's ByteDance, based in China, is obviously enraged with that. ByteDance, however, in a counter, is going to do something important now. They are going to open a data center in Ireland. This is one way of showing that we are not stealing your data. Data is taken, which every tech company does, but it will be kept in Europe itself. We are not taking it away. So Europe is undecided on TikTok. So that's the idea, that in Dublin, capital of Ireland, there will be a data center to store your data. Mr. Mike Pompeo, who is the Secretary of State of the USA, he feels that Cuba should not get a vote in the Human Rights Council, the UNHRC, based in Geneva. Japan has marked 75 years since the atomic bombs in Hiroshima. Uh, Fair enough. Now I want to talk about Lebanon with you guys. Lebanon is actually a really interesting country. Now, if I go back to its independence about 7 decades back, at that time Lebanon was the only country in the Middle East which had a Christian majority. In fact, a lot of people of Lebanese origin are dime a dozen in the West. Mia Khalifa, Shakira, and this very famous writer Nissim Ezekiel, I think that's his name. I'm forgetting his name. The one who wrote The Black Swan. Also, a couple of other writers I can't recall, but they, of course, are of Lebanese origin. So Lebanon was a Christian majority country. Yes, a lot of these people, diaspora, they feel Lebanon should not be called a Middle Eastern country at all, that it should rather be called a country from the Levant, the Eastern Levant, because it borders the Mediterranean. Because it was a Christian majority country, and among the rest, there was also a significant Muslims were just slightly less than half, and among them they were divided into Sunnis and Shias. There's also a fourth community called the Druze. Druze, again, they can broadly be categorized as Muslims, but they follow a slightly different form of Islam. In fact, they also have some syncretic norms borrowed from Judaism and Christianity, and in fact even from Hinduism, because Hinduism, of course, one of the oldest extant religions of the world, so they do have taken certain points from there. So because of this strange system, Lebanon is the last country in the world where the leadership is still held by a system known as a concessional form of government. So the president is always a Christian, that too from a Maronite Christian community. So Michel Ayoun is the president. As the name suggests, he might be of French origin. A lot of French people migrated as well to Lebanon, because Lebanon was a French colony, and this country was also the most westernized of, I'll use the word Middle East for our ease of conversation, the most westernized of the Middle Eastern countries. Lebanon shares a border with Israel and with Syria. Both are, Syria, of course, extremely troubled country, Israel, of course, has its own problems because there is this group called Hezbollah in Lebanon, a Shia group, apparently backed by Iran. They often pick up fights with Israel. So that is also a complex area. But Lebanon does have access to the sea. That makes it a really important point. So Emmanuel Macron, so the president of Syria, Lebanon, will always be a Christian. The prime minister will be, I believe, Sunni or maybe Shia. The speaker of the house will always be from the other sect of Islam. So that's how they are divided. They are fixed into this thing. But Lebanon has suffered terrible economic crisis last few years. Devaluation of the currency has taken place. The French president Emmanuel Macron, France is of course former colonial leader of Lebanon, so it wants to apparently help Lebanon, and the people of Lebanon, especially the Christians, they feel an affinity to France. So he's seen here mingling with the crowds. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, and Mr. Macron actually says that the top leaders of Lebanon need to hear some inconvenient truths because the country is not doing well, and so certain things need to be done. Right? One of those who passed away, now the number has reached 145 minimum. 5,000 people are still injured, so numbers could add up. Germany, one of the So the envoy, German envoy, has also died in the crash. One of that's been confirmed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Heiko Maas. So she's a female employee who was based in an apartment in the Lebanese capital. Right. So I'm done with the international page. Little bit on the business side. I've already discussed with you the. Uh, got a message from Unacademy itself. So yeah, so I did discuss with you the RBI new policy which has come up. So that is already been done. Uh, I've discussed with you these things. Okay, there's the NCLAT, which is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. They have set aside a bid for RICO India. There is going to be a fillip also provided to offline retail payments. Okay, now there's one important point between Total, which is a French energy company, them and Adani. Total actually owns, they actually invested a few years back. So the company owns about 37% of the energy company of the Adanis. So Total and Adani, that's a company together, they are going to bid for fuel pump license, or rather petrol pumps as we call in India. So they wish to operate petrol pumps as well in India. So the company is called Adani Gas. Its CEO, Mr. Suresh Manglani, wants this thing to happen. As you know, 37.4% stake owned by Total. So this JV wants to leverage the liberalized fuel rating regime announced by the present government. Vodafone and Idea losses have increased once again. There is also this report on the Data Security Council of India. There's an organization called the DSCI, or the Data Security Council of India. As you can understand, it's about protection of data and cyber security. So they have mentioned with WFH increasing or work from home, data security will be all the more important. So companies should build a proper policy and proper guidelines to ensure that this happens smoothly. Right, moving into my favorite page, which is sports. I had told you today's class would be shorter. So there is an ICC meeting going to be held today to discuss the venues for the next two T20 World Cups, as well as to further update on the next Women's ODI World Cup, which is to be held in New Zealand. The National Tennis Championship, or Fenesta, has been postponed. The UEFA Champions League is set to resume. So Juventus Football Club, they are working hard to get Paulo Dybala fit again, the talismanic Argentinian striker. The Indian lawn tennis player Mr. Divij Sharan, who is ranked world number 56 in doubles. This year, he will be part of the US Open, but he's unsure how things will work out because the US Open will have fewer matches this year. It's reduced due to number of players walking out. In fact, the prize money will also be lesser this year. The winner will receive $850,000, which is less prize money than last year's. The total pool of money is also about $4 million less than last year. Last year was 57 million. This year it's 53.4 million. So they'll receive 850,000 less. So singles winners will get 3 million this year. Last year they got 3.85 million. Right? It's officially been declared Vivo is no longer the sponsor of IPL. However, replacement has not been finalized as yet. Right. Pakistan has scored 326 runs in his first innings. I told you yesterday about Babar Azam hitting a 69. But there's also news that Shan Masood has scored his fourth hundred in his 21 Test career. In fact, it's his third consecutive century. He had scored 200s just before the lockdown in end February and early March against Bangladesh. So he now has 400. He scored on 156. Jimmy Anderson still going strong. He picked up a wicket, but only one. As you know, Jofra Archer's picked three. England has started batting once again. Manchester United has won its Europa League game. I told you yesterday. Shakhtar Donetsk also won, defeating Wolfsburg 3-0. Wolfsburg, they're actually owned by the Volkswagen Group, partly owned. In Germany, you can't own more than 51%, I believe. So that much is owned by the Volkswagen. The main Volkswagen plant is also in Wolfsburg, near what was the earlier East Germany. And Wolfsburg isn't a bad team. They've quite a good few good players, such as the Austrian midfielder Xavier Schlager and the Dutch striker Wout Weghorst, and also the Belgian goalkeeper Koen Casteels. Right, these are a couple of good players they have. And I remember the centre backs are pretty good because for a month I saw a lot of Bundesliga. After Bundesliga resumed, it was the first football league to return. So I did see quite a few of the matches. Just can't recall all the names. There's the German midfielder Maximilian Arnold, but they lost. Yeah. Inter Milan has defeated Getafe of Spain 2-0. No surprise there. Lukaku and Christian Eriksen, two of the biggest stars, scoring the winning goals. I'll quickly run through Times of India before we end the session. There's Pep Guardiola versus Zinedine Zidane, of course, in the Champions League. Yaya Toure, legendary midfielder from the Cote d'Ivoire and Manchester City, he might be on his way to India, apparently. So he has had a word with, of course, he's well past his prime, but, he could still play a role in one of the ISL clubs. That will be big news, in fact. So in the NBA, National Basketball Association, main football basketball competition of the USA, $300 million have been pledged by the team owners for Black Empowerment Movement. The Black Lives Matter. So that is something that's quite an interesting name. So, on the Times of India, the leading contenders to replace Vivo as a title sponsor has been mentioned. Byju's is one of them. Amazon remains the lead contender. There's also Dream 11 keen. Dream 11 is also one of those. Amazon, however, remains likely to be the main one. And Unacademy has also been mentioned, by the way. It's a direct competitor of Byju's. My Circle 11 has also been named, which of course is the mother company for Dream 11. So let's see how it works. We really hope it's Unacademy. Would love to see my company there. And there's in fact more to Unacademy. I remember there's a program as well. There's an ad on Times of India on the first page itself. Or was it in the Hindu? Let me just check. Yes, on the Hindu. In fact, there is a function. There is an online seminar which will take place for the defense service exams. So the leading defense services personnel will be part of it. So do watch out for it. Not much else from the Times of India. Let me quickly take you through if there's something. So there is this news that in Chennai there are 700 tons of the Beirut explosive, the one which was used, ammonium nitrate, which took place there. So there should be some form of protection done there. This is not something which is only hurt Beirut. Few years back in China there was a terrible accident, and back in the 1940s there was something in Texas which killed about 500 people. That was the worst. So this is something where work has to be done. There is a report, a very interesting one, on how lockdown has closed the housework gender gap. Now, men are also participating increasingly in household duties. In prison in Andhra Pradesh, 247 inmates have uh, been confirmed positive for COVID-19. That's scary. Because the number of riders are so few, Haryana has actually suspended the Volvo services in the city of Gurugram. These are the ones which ply between Gurugram and Ambala, Agra, Chandigarh, and Panchkula. But nowadays the riders are very few, so that is why, at least temporarily, they have been, they have been suspended. Daily ridership before lockdown was 2,000. It is down to less than 20% now in Unlock One and Unlock Two. So there has been a 200 crore rupee revenue loss because these are government buses. The stock market is doing fairly well now. Was something I wanted to discuss. I'm just not finding that news. I told you about the Kisan Rail. Oh yes, this is what I wanted to. I found that news finally. I'll just read out the headline. It says expansionist China eyes Tajik territory. So what exactly is Tajik territory? There's this Central Asian country called Tajikistan, which was a part of the USSR. It's one of the five stans. So China has also had some issues. It's one of the poorest countries in that region. Remember, Turkmenistan is the richest. It is one of the world's. It has one of the world's largest reserves of natural gas. This country, this Tajikistan, is much poorer. It's on the Pamir Mountains completely, almost most of the part at least. So the capital is Dushanbe. So China and Tajikistan, I'll read out to you, signed a boundary agreement in 2010 when Tajikistan was forced to cede 1,158 square kilometers of territory in the Pamirs to China. This is massive. Back in 2010, a decade back. So China's expansionism is nothing new. It was a decade back that Tajikistan suffered huge amount of territorial humility. Right, a lot has gone into the report of the history. 1911 was when first this land was transferred to the USSR. That time it was part of, it was part of the Russian Empire. Tajikistan was not yet called USSR. It was a monarchy back then, the Romanov dynasty. Not yet did you have communism or the Soviet Union. So that's when China first ceded this land. Uh, and before that there's further a story, but by and large this is the news right now. So these two countries are also engaged in some sort of a dialogue regarding Chinese expansionism. So that's pretty much it for the day. Thank you all so much. I'll keep the session open for a few minutes for you guys to chip in with your comments, any questions you have. This is my code. What are you waiting for? Like, share, and subscribe. AD09, you'll get a reward ship with this. So tomorrow as well, I'll be taking a session on tomorrow's newspaper. There's just one session tomorrow, which I'm timing from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sunday, I don't think I'll be taking a class. I'll be engaged in some personal matters. Monday, my special class debut is on. Right, fair enough. I think we can wrap up the session. I don't think that, yeah, that's fine. So thank you all so much. See you guys very soon. I think tomorrow itself. Right? Thank you again.